ESS BIZGrants. What we're going to do today is explore what's included in ESS BIZGrants, how you use it, sort of reports that are prepared, and how you can use the material within your accountancy business. So where our system starts from is asking you to insert some basic information on your client. There are 20 questions to be answered. When we first sat down and looked at what information would be needed for an accounting firm to be able to utilize a product like ESS BIZGrants to facilitate the identification of grants for clients, with you able to control the process in-house without sending it out to an external consulting type organization, it was obvious that we had to have a means of answering a whole range of questions. In fact, initially we wrote down over 800 questions for the various grants. What we've done is put the key 20 questions into the first segment of the system. Those questions require answers, and then we do a filtering process. There are then some further questions to be answered on particular grants, and from that you can identify the grants which might be suitable for a particular client. The system will produce a grant report that you can give the client. We'll have your name on it and the client's name on it, and we'll have a brief synopsis of the various grants that have been identified that the client may be eligible for. In this way you can be showing your client that you are proactive, you're thinking about them in offering this service. Within the material you have a Grant Toolkit. This toolkit contains a paper that has been prepared by ESS BizTools, our senior product that we have. The paper explains how the grant operates, how you apply, and what the reporting processes are, and obviously what the grant amounts are and what they're for. In some of the grants that are a bit complicated, there's also some additional information on a particular grant, especially the application process. You can apply from our system if you wish, and you will be directed to the appropriate government department URL. If you click on that, it will take you to that grant's application form. So that's basically how the system works. We're going to have a look at the website a little bit later on. Your investment, a 12-month subscription to ESS BIZGrants, has been reduced to $450 plus GST. That will give a firm for one office, 24/7 access, irrespective of the number of authors who are utilizing the system, for 12 months. So we believe it's a quick and easy solution to find government grants, and it allows accountants to administer this process in-house without referring it to any external advisors at all. And one of the side benefits of all this is that in a number of the grants there is work that can be funded by the government grant that a larger number of accountancy firms each year are undertaking parts of that work, especially with the Enterprise Connect grants, which will fund virtually any type of activity which will improve the business process of a client that is within the eligible industries, and there's now 12 of them, and has achieved the minimum turnover levels, which range from $1 million to $1.5 million per annum, depending on the type of business. So the product's been developed by ESS BizTools, and the computer software has been developed by Tim Donovan from Real Advantage Solutions. So when you first go into the system, we're going to be asking you to identify the corporate structure, the turnover, employee numbers. Employee numbers are very important for some grants. The location, there are some variations in grants depending on the location around Australia. Does the business export? Does the business undertake research and development? We are using the answer to that question to supply links to not only research and development rebates, but also to the Commercialisation Australia grants, which are available for businesses which have developed new products, processes or services. So we believe to have undertaken that. Most people will have had to have undertaken research and development first. There's a few more clicked on since we started. Just a reminder, we will open the lines at the end for any questions. But if you have an urgent question you want to ask as we go through this process today, please type it in and raise your hand, and we'll try to respond during the webinar. Obviously, you also need to identify the type of business and the industry that the business is operating in, because most government grants, that's how they're set up. They identify the industry and the type of business that the government department is targeting with this particular grant. So in the first instance, we're going to produce a possible grants list we call a pending list. You will then be asked to answer some additional questions. The additional questions can range from 1 question to 8 questions in some cases. And this is trying to identify whether your client is really potentially eligible for that grant. And as I said before, you can then receive a potentially eligible grants report, which you're able to submit to your client. And the toolkit is there to assist you. And there's links to the government department website. So what we might do at this stage is just end the show and go on to the actual website, which I seem to have lost, so I'll just bring it back up. So when you go to the website, one of the things we'd like you to look at is the testimonials. David Smith, Director of Smith Inc. 2020, formerly the President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia, about 12 or 13 years ago, was one of the gentlemen that convinced us to write ESS BIZGrants, primarily because of problems he saw in the small business community who were complaining about accountants not keeping them abreast of what was happening with government grants. David was undertaking due diligence reviews for Count at that stage for accountants to be invited into their organisation. And we received a testimonial recently from Jason Kresge, who was a new subscriber, who indicated that he was very happy with the product. You can look at some case studies if you wish. There are 8 case studies that are in the free access area on the website. And we've prepared the case studies based on different types of industries and different locations all around Australia, so you can get an idea, if you work your way through that, just how this product works. But what we're going to do is start a search. So we've already logged on. We are now within the site proper. And the first thing we want to have a look at is client profiles. This is obviously a blank profile that you would complete. You can insert a reference number if you like rather than the client's name, because we are using cloud technology, and our strong recommendation is leave the data in the system. It will facilitate the updating in a year's time, and the other real benefit is in The second version of this product, which we hope to release before the 30th of June, includes a facility that for a client who is already created in the system, if since you were last working on that client, a new grant has been added to ESS BIZGrants, then the system will identify and tell you that there are some new grants available next time you log on to ESS BIZGrants and call up that particular client's records. Obviously, if there's no information there, the system can't do that. You need to identify which sort of structure that the business is using. As you're probably aware, the company structure is the most popular business structure for government grants. Bureaucrats love companies. They're very suspicious of trusts, of course, and some of them believe that a small business is not fair income, in their words, unless they're operating as a company. Makes it difficult for some small businesses to therefore get government grants, but you need to identify which of those structures the client's operating within. We want to know whether the business exports or imports, because obviously that's going to link through to export market development grants, and a number of the states have got grants for exporting. One of the things I should have stressed at the beginning, we have grants included in this system for Australian government grants and state and territory grants. Later in this year we are going to add local government grants, because there are a number of local government organisations in Australia who are offering grants for small businesses. They're not in there yet. We're still trying to collate who they are, those local government areas. Importing of products, there are some grants or deferments built around GST and import duty. So we just want to know so we can identify those grants. Number of employees can be very important for some grants, primarily some of the state and territory grants. ESS BIZGrants has been prepared to service small medium enterprises. So if an applicant does not have an ABN, they will not be shown any grants, because this system is geared towards small medium enterprises and they all need an ABN. So all the grants that we're displaying in this product are suitable for small medium enterprises. So we have no grants included in ESS BIZGrants for charities or not-for-profits. That's another area, very complicated area. We're thinking about looking at it later in the year, but we want to get our second version of ESS BIZGrants properly out into the marketplace first. Years in operation is also important. Enterprise Connect, arguably the largest grant for small business on an individual grant number basis, has a requirement that the business has to be active and in business and to have lodged 3 annual business activity statements. And many other grants, particularly state and territory grants, have this requirement for having been in business for periods varying from 2, 3, 4 years. Incidentally, people ask me what grants there are for startups. Unfortunately, there are not many grants for startups left in Australia at present. There are some, but there's not many. The Commonwealth's biggest one is Commercialisation Australia, which will help a startup, but there's not too many others. Turnover is an important figure. It is the gross turnover of the business. It obviously has implications in the research and development, where there's a change of basis at $20 million. Enterprise Connect has a minimum turnover and a maximum turnover. Maximum is 100 million in each case, but for different entities the minimum turnover varies from 1 million, 1.5 million, and if the business happens to be located in a remote area or is serviced by businesses situated in outer regional areas, then the turnover only needs to be $750,000. Annual expenditure has been included because Enterprise Connect, which I just said a moment minute ago was arguably the largest individual grant supplier in Australia, has this concept that you can qualify by achieving minimum turnover or the same figure as expenditure. So you could have a business that might have spent in expenditure $1.6 million, have virtually no turnover, could qualify for Enterprise Connect. They may have spent the money for research and development, a pilot plant, patent attorney's expenses, registration of patents both here and overseas, etc. The businesses need to be registered for GST. As I said before, this is a small business, medium-sized business program. They all need to be registered for GST. If a business is tax exempt, it will not be shown any grants. The research and development question is there to trigger which other grants besides R&D the business might be potentially eligible for. And the last question is a question that is asked now in the vast majority of government grants. Is there any financial vulnerability about the business? Now, that's a question that a government employee is asking, so it needs to be answered from their point of view. They're only really worried if in the couple of weeks after they issue a grant to a business that it goes into liquidation or there's receivers appointed. They're not really concerned about the business having 70 days debtors outstanding, and as long as it's not going to cause a major appointment to be made, then I would answer that there is no concerns. Because if you answer there yes to that question, you will not be displayed any grants for that client because the appropriate government department would reach that application. So to go any further there, we need to have completed an actual profile, and I thought it was quicker because we're trying to finish this webinar in about half an hour. If we just have a look at a couple of case studies we've already established, and the one I'm going to show you is a company which we called Forbes Tea Rooms. It's got 4 employees, been operating for 4 years. It's got a turnover of 520,000, annual expenditure of 495 grand, and we'll go into save. The address, we had already inserted the address and the postcode. The system then determined that this business was located in outer regional Australia. Incidentally, these location types are determined based on the health industry maps that they use to recompense medical practitioners, nurses, etc., who work in various areas around Australia. The financial details we've already inserted. Now, the business and industry profile, we need to determine the classification in accordance with the Australian and New Zealand industrial classification. They're the ones for business, so you need to go through and select which business activity relates to this client. You can tick more than one if you wish. We've decided that this business is a retailer, and we need to have a look at what industry that they're operating in accordance with the ANZIC classifications, and we've decided that this business is accommodation, cafe, restaurant. So at that stage we can say, okay, let's do a search. Now what we're now getting is the pending areas. Now we've already identified some grants which you'll see we've already put into potentially eligible to speed up this process. There are a number of apprenticeship grants, but the client might not be interested in apprentices. The Australian Bureau of Statistics comes up in most of the grants because it's free material. It used to cost $4,000 or $5,000. Clients can get a lot of information off the AEST. In some parts of Australia, there are various innovative regions that Enterprise Connect offer grants for. I've previously had a look at this and I've confirmed that the New South Wales ones don't cover this area. There are disaster grants available in New South Wales, but we've looked at that and said no, our client in Forbes wasn't suffering from those activities. But we might just have a look at remote enterprise so you get an idea of how this works. So if we click on to remote enterprise, now this is an Enterprise Connect grant, and you have grant details. And if you see here, what it's talking about is remote enterprises are normally located in remote or very remote areas. But businesses in outer regional areas, and if you remember, the system identified that this tea house in Forbes was in an outer regional area with substantial operations activities in remote Australia, may be eligible to apply. So if you wanted to follow that through, we could then look at the funding details, and that business could have applied for up to $50,000 to gain a university graduate to assist in implementing their strategies. Probably a bit unlikely in this client, but that's available. But the main one they may have been eligible for is up to $20,000 on a 50-50 basis to undertake a tailored advisory service. This work can be for virtually any type of purpose that will improve the business's operation. The Grant Toolkit is where we've included some additional information. So if you wanted to view the ESS BIZTools paper on remote enterprises, there's the contents, there's the paper. It's linked to the 12 other papers on industries that are supported by Enterprise Connect. So there's a paper that explains how this product works, what they can get from tailored assistance, etc. If they wanted to look at the remote areas group of firms, eligibility, because under Enterprise Connect you can have an application also for a group of firms. So there's another checklist there that you might wish to use. Now we can then go on to some additional criteria. Now this is for a group enterprise, so there's a series of questions there that you could go through and answer, and if you answer those questions correctly, and incidentally yes is not always the correct answer, it will then indicate that the grant is potentially eligible. It comes up in green with the word eligible. So if we go through that, are at least 75%, let's say they are. Is there a maximum of 4 firms? We'll say yes, there are. Does the company have a, now in a group, you only need $500,000 in turnover. So we're saying yes, this business had a turnover of $520,000. So the real benefit of a group is we can have 4 businesses coming together. They can each get a grant of $20,000, so that's 80. They have to put their own money in 80. It's $160,000 to be done in the group. And the example we're using is a motel, a food establishment that offers a unique food experience or liquor experience, a tourist operator, coach, transport sort of business. They could form a group and do some general marketing together. The group must have pardon me, my voice is starting to go there. Group must have a turnover of at least $2 million, so we say yes, it's got that. This is the other 3 things you're going to be participating with. they have to be value adding or form part of a supply chain or have something in common. So the type of business structure that I talked about before, motel, restaurant supplying special food and wine experience, or boutique beverage experience would fit that criteria. As each of the companies operated in Australia for the last 3 years, are each members of the group solvent? And we'll say yes. Now what that's now saying is we are eligible to apply. You notice that we now have this additional box that's appeared saying apply now. So if you wanted to, you could click on here, and if you clicked on this URL, it would take you to the Enterprise Connect website, so you could view the application form. That takes a little while, so we'll go back to results and let's look at potentially eligible. So we had previously identified this business could have been eligible under the tourism sector group. That's one of the Enterprise Connect groups. Or it could also be eligible if it was supplying into customers in a remote location. If we wanted to at that stage, we could produce a report, and I just want to show you what the reports look like. So there's a report which you could give the client. It's going to have the client's name on it, your name. It doesn't have ESS BizTools. It will have your name, the name of the firm registered to use this system. There's a profile on what the grant's about. There's details as to what the funding is, both researchers in business and tailored assistance scheme. Then there's similar information for the tourism sector group. There is a disclaimer at the bottom of each page, which is basically saying that whilst every care is taken, there is no guarantee that the client is going to be able to receive a grant. I'm just going to show you another report that will have a bit more information in it than the one I just showed you. I want to get back to another grant. So let's have a look at another business to do with that. So have a look at the Forbes Motel. Now in this business, I won't go through all there again, we established a turnover of 1.9 million, and it's a motel. It's got 17 employees, and we've said it's service, business and accommodation, etc. And if we have a look at potentially eligible there, we've identified that if the business is servicing people in remote locations, tourism sector, or women in business. So there's some grants there that they could have been potentially eligible for. And if we produce the report then, you would get a complete summary of those various grants. So at this stage, I'm going to open the trying to open the communication channels, but I can't see that I can do that. Click to unmute. Unfortunately, the system's not letting me unmute. So if anyone has got any questions, do you want to type it in, or do you want to send me an email later on? And we'll answer your questions for you then. So I haven't seen any questions, so hopefully you've got a better idea now of how ESS BIZGrants operates. There are hundreds of government grants included in the system, which will give you the ability to be very proactive in servicing your clients' requirements by being able to suggest grants to them that they could apply for. Our suggestion is that you use ESS BIZGrants in one of the three following ways. The first one is that at this time of the year, as you approach the end of June, it's an ideal time to have a accountant that mightn't be as busy as what they normally are to go through your business clients and start inserting the data into the profiles and producing some reports so that you can have a discussion with the clients and identify the grants that they may be eligible for. The second way is, as you start undertaking the 2013 fiscal year accounts preparation and income tax return, why not, as part of the process, have one of the junior members of your team insert the information into the profile, and then have a more senior member of the team go through and look at the pending grants and try to identify what the client might be looking for. Or alternatively, you could sit down with a client and go through that with them sitting there with you and selecting which of the grants you think they might be eligible for. And the third way, of course, is if you hear of similar businesses in the area obtaining grants where you might want to go through and do a process on your clients that look similar to